It was a cold afternoon. The wind outside was strong, and people were walking fast, trying to stay warm. Inside the restaurant, soft music played, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. The place was fancy. White tablecloths, shining glasses, and waiters in black suits. Rich people sat and laughed, enjoying their expensive meals. Then, the door opened slowly. A black granny, around 75 years old, stepped inside. Her name was Granny May. She wore an old brown coat and carried a small, faded handbag. Her shoes were clean but old. Her gray hair was tied neatly, and she had a kind smile on her face that as she walked in. The noise in the room became quiet for a moment. Some people stared. A couple at the front table whispered. One woman rolled her eyes. Others just looked away. Then came Rick, a young white waiter with a sharp jaw and a proud walk. He saw Granny May and frowned. He quickly walked over to her with fake politeness. "Ma'am," he said, forcing a smile. "Are you lost?" Granny May looked up gently and said, "No, son. I'm here for lunch." Rick looked her up and down. Her clothes were simple. Her hands looked rough from years of hard work. He leaned closer and said quietly, "This place is, a bit expensive. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable somewhere else." Granny May kept smiling. "I'm meeting someone. He asked me to come here." Rick sighed. "Okay, but we're very busy. Don't expect much." He led her to a small table in the corner, near the kitchen door. It was the worst table in the restaurant. Granny May didn't complain. She sat down slowly and placed her handbag on the chair beside her. Rick didn't offer her a menu. He didn't bring water. He just walked away. "In the back," Rick whispered to another waiter and laughed. "She's probably here to stay warm. Watch, her guest will never come." At another table, a woman whispered to her husband, "Why would someone like her come to a place like this?" But Granny May sat peacefully. She looked around with gentle eyes. The noise of forks and knives, the smell of bread, the soft music, she took it all in. Her hands rested on her lap. She didn't seem upset. After a few minutes, a kind-looking waitress named Sarah came over. She was new and didn't understand why Rick was acting strange. She brought water to Granny May with a shy smile. "Would you like a menu, ma'am?" she asked. Granny May smiled kindly. "No, thank you. I'll wait." Sarah walked away. Rick gave her a cold look. "Don't waste your time. She's not ordering anything." Sarah looked confused but didn't say anything. Rick kept watching Granny May. He didn't like the way she sat there so calmly, as if she belonged. He walked over again. "Are you sure your guest is coming?" he asked rudely. Granny May looked up. Her eyes were soft but sharp. "Yes, he's coming." Rick rolled his eyes. "Well, don't sit here too long if he doesn't. We need the table." Granny May smiled. "Don't worry, you'll know when he's here." There was something strong behind her gentle voice. Rick felt it for a second, but he pushed the feeling away. Minutes passed. Customers came and went. Rick kept throwing angry looks toward the corner table. Then Granny May slowly took out a small mobile phone. It was old and had scratches. She typed something quietly, just one message. "I'm here. They don't want me." Then she placed the phone back in her bag and took a sip of water. Calm. Silent. Outside. The wind blew harder. The sky turned darker. A few drops of rain touched the windows. Inside, the air was tense. Sarah stood near the counter, watching. She wanted to help Granny May, but Rick was watching her too. Sarah had bills to pay. She didn't want to lose her job, so she stayed silent. Granny May looked around the restaurant. She saw people smiling, eating, and laughing. No one knew her. No one cared. But she didn't look sad. Her face was calm, like someone who had seen this kind of behavior many times before. A couple stood up to leave. As they passed Granny May's table, the man said, "This place is going downhill. Letting anyone in now." Rick laughed loudly. At the joke, Granny May didn't react. She just looked at the clock on the wall. 2 more minutes passed. Then, a loud engine sound came from outside. Everyone turned to look. A black car, shiny and big, stopped in front of the restaurant. The door opened slowly. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out. He wore sunglasses. Even though the sky was cloudy, he moved with confidence. The doorman quickly opened the restaurant door for him. As he walked in, the room became quiet. Every head turned. Even Rick froze. The man looked around the room cold, serious, until his eyes found the small table in the corner. Then he smiled. "Hi, Mom," he said softly, walking over to Granny May. She smiled back, her eyes full of warmth. "Hey, baby." The man hugged her gently and sat beside her. He looked around. His eyes landed on Rick. Rick suddenly felt small. "I hear you've been taking care of my mother," the man said slowly. His voice was calm but dangerous, like a storm about to break. Rick stuttered. I didn't know she was your, The man raised his hand. "Don't explain, just wait." Then he looked at the manager's office door. "Tell him I'm here." Rick didn't move. The man leaned forward just a little. Now Rick quickly ran toward the office. The customers whispered again, but this time, not about Granny May. Sarah looked at Granny May with wide eyes. She finally understood. This was no ordinary woman. And her son. He wasn't just anyone. Granny May took another sip of water. Her hands were still. Her face was peaceful. She had waited. She had smiled through the pain. But now, it was time. for everyone to understand who she was and who her son had become. The restaurant was no longer loud. It was quiet like a church. People whispered, but their eyes were fixed on the tall man sitting next to Granny May. His name was Marcus, and from the way he walked, the way he sat, and the way he looked around, it was clear. He was powerful. He wore a dark suit that fit him perfectly. His hands were strong. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp like a knife. Granny May smiled gently, resting her hand on his arm. "You didn't have to come so fast," she said softly. "I came the moment you said they disrespected you," Marcus replied, his jaw tight. "That's all I needed to hear." From behind the counter, Sarah watched everything. She felt nervous. She remembered how Rick had treated Granny May, the rudeness, the mocking. Now she wished she had said something sooner. The manager, a short man with glasses and a red face, came rushing out of his office. He looked nervous. His name was Mr. Dawson. "Sir," he said, forcing a smile. "Can I help you?" Marcus didn't look at him. He was still looking around the room. "Nice place. Clean. Fancy. Good food, I hear." "Yes, sir. Only the best," Mr. Dawson said quickly. Marcus finally looked at him. "Then why do you treat people like trash?" Mr. Dawson's smile faded. "I am sorry." Marcus pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. He opened a voice note and pressed play. It was Rick's voice. "This place is not for people like you." Then the voice of a customer. "Why would someone like her come here?" Then Rick again. "She's not going to order anything. She's just here to warm up." The voice note ended. The restaurant went silent again. Mr. Dawson's face turned pale. He looked around nervously. "Sir, I assure you, we treat all customers the same." Marcus leaned forward. "Do you? Then tell me, why was my mother seated at the worst table? Why wasn't she offered a menu? Why did your waiter mock her?" "I wasn't aware," Mr. Dawson stammered. Granny May looked at him kindly. "Of course you weren't. You were in your office. You didn't even notice me." Double quotes. Mr. Dawson swallowed hard. "I'll speak to Rick immediately." "Oh, don't worry," Marcus said coldly. "I've already spoken to him." He turned to Rick, who stood frozen near the counter. His face was red with fear and shame. "Come here," Marcus said. Rick walked slowly. Like a child who had been caught stealing, Marcus stood up. He was taller than Rick and stronger. He looked down at him. "Did you enjoy laughing at my mother?" Marcus asked. Rick shook his head quickly. "No, sir. I didn't mean anything." Marcus cut him off. "Don't lie. You saw an old black woman and thought she didn't belong here. You treated her like dirt." "I didn't know who she was," Rick said. Marcus's voice grew louder, but still calm. "That's the point. You don't respect people unless they have power. You think people like my mother should be invisible." Granny May gently touched Marcus's arm. "It's okay, baby. I'm used to it." That made Marcus even angrier. Not loud, not wild, just deeper, like a storm building in silence. "You shouldn't be used to it," he said. "Not anymore." He turned to Mr. Dawson. "You know who I am?" Mr. Dawson nodded slowly. "Yes. Marcus Harris, CEO of the company that just bought this restaurant chain last month," Marcus said sharply. "Every branch, every location." Gasps filled the room. Rick stepped back. Mr. Dawson looked like he might faint. "Yes," Marcus continued. "I own this place now, and I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to see how people were treated when they didn't look rich or powerful." He looked around the room. "Now, I know." A customer stood up and clapped once, then stopped, unsure if it was the right time. Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. She was shocked. Rick tried to speak again, but Marcus raised his hand. "Don't. You've said enough." Marcus turned to Sarah. "You brought her water?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, sir. You tried to help." "I did. But I got scared," she admitted. Marcus nodded. "Fear is human, but silence feeds injustice." Sarah looked down. "I'm sorry." Granny May smiled warmly at her. "You're young. You can still learn. You have a kind heart." Sarah nodded with tears in her eyes. Marcus turned back to Mr. Dawson. "From today forward, this restaurant will have new training. New rules, new people." Rick looked. The sound of clapping slowly faded, but the feeling stayed in the air. Granny May and Marcus were now sitting at the best table in the restaurant. It was near the big window. The light from outside fell gently across the table. A white cloth, clean plates, and 2 glasses of cold water were set neatly in front of them. Sarah, the kind waitress, brought them menus. "Take your time," she said softly, still nervous but smiling. Marcus nodded. "Thank you, Sarah." As she walked away, people around the room kept stealing glances. Some were ashamed, others were curious, and a few just couldn't believe what had happened. Marcus looked around calmly. He noticed every stare. He didn't say anything, but inside, he was thinking, "This isn't just about my mother. This happens to many people, every day." Granny May picked up the menu slowly. Her hands were still a little shaky, but her face showed peace. "This place is too fancy for me," she said quietly. Marcus smiled. "Then today is special." Granny May looked at her son with love. "You've changed, baby, grown strong, but your heart, it's still soft." Marcus lowered his eyes. "You made me that way." A quiet moment passed between them, but outside the restaurant, a different story was building. Outside, in the parking lot, Rick, the rude waiter, stood next to a dirty white car. His face was red, his hands were shaking. He had just been fired in front of everyone. He kicked the car door hard. Stupid old woman, stupid rich son. Rick pulled out his phone and began calling someone. Hello, yeah, it's me. You won't believe what just happened. That old lady, the black one, her son owns the restaurant now. He paused, listening. No, I didn't know. He came in like some big shot boss. Fired me on the spot, just because I asked her to leave. Another pause? No, I don't feel bad. She looked poor. She didn't belong there. How was I supposed to know who she was? He laughed bitterly and hung up. Rick leaned against his car, breathing heavily. Suddenly, a sleek black SUV pulled up slowly next to him. The windows were dark. The engine purred like a lion. Rick squinted. He couldn't see inside. Then the back window rolled down. A man in a black suit and sunglasses stared at him. Rick straightened up. What? The man said nothing, just looked. Then the window rolled back up, and the SUV drove toward the front entrance of the restaurant again. Slow, calm, dangerous. Rick stood there frozen. Was this man with Marcus? He watched as the SUV stopped in front of the restaurant. A tall woman in a blue suit stepped out. She carried a small black case in her hand. She walked in without speaking to anyone. Back inside, Marcus saw her and stood up quickly. Glad you made it. Granny May looked surprised. Who's she? Marcus smiled. Someone important. The woman walked over and placed the black case on the table. Mr. Harris, she said. The final papers are signed? The restaurant chain is now 100% under your name. She opened the case and showed the documents to Marcus. He nodded. Granny May looked confused. You mean this place is really yours now? Marcus nodded. Yes. All of them. I didn't tell you before. I wanted to surprise you. Granny May was quiet. Her lips trembled slightly. You did all this? And never told me. Marcus held her hand. I wanted to give you more than flowers or gifts. I wanted to give you a place where no one could ever make you feel small again. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away with a tissue from her handbag. You were always my strong boy, she whispered. A flashback begins. Marcus, as a child, is sitting on the floor of their small living room. He's crying, his knees are scraped. His mother, younger then, holds him. What happened, baby? A man pushed me, said I was dirty, said we don't belong here. Granny May holds him tight. You belong anywhere your heart takes you, but he was big and mean. She lifts his chin. Then one day you'll be bigger and kinder. Back to present. Marcus looked around the restaurant again. Now, it felt different. The tables looked the same. The food smelled the same. But something inside the place had changed. The staff stood straighter. Customers looked more respectful. The air felt cleaner. The woman in the blue suit handed Marcus a small card. You'll need to sign here. He signed it quickly. She closed the case, bowed her head, and left silently. Granny May shook her head in wonder. All this? Just because I walked in and sat at a table. Marcus looked serious. No, Mom. All this? Because you should be able to walk in and sit anywhere. Sarah returned with their drinks. I just wanted to say, she began nervously, I'm really sorry I didn't speak up earlier. Granny May smiled. You did more than most. You brought me water when no one else would. Sarah nodded. I hope I can keep working here. Marcus looked at her kindly. You're exactly the kind of person we want. Her eyes widened. Really? Yes? Marcus said. But next time, speak louder. Speak sooner. Don't be afraid of people like Rick. Sarah smiled with relief. I won't forget this day. Neither would anyone in that room. Back outside. Rick drove away fast, his tires screeching. He was angry, but deep down, a part of him felt something else. Fear, regret, and maybe, just maybe, shame. Inside the restaurant, Granny May and Marcus ate slowly. They laughed, talked, and enjoyed their meal. No one disturbed them. No one stared. Because now, everyone knew who they were. But more than that, they knew what they stood for. Not power. Not revenge. Respect, dignity. And change. Granny May looked out the window. Her hands folded gently on the table. Marcus followed her gaze. The black SUV waited outside. Quiet, strong, just like them. The sunlight was fading now. The sky outside the restaurant turned soft orange and gold. Inside, the air was calm again, but the energy had changed. People still whispered, but now their eyes were filled with respect. Marcus had made a strong statement, and his mother, Granny May, had done nothing but sit quietly with dignity. That was power in its purest form. But the day wasn't over yet. Something was still coming. Something that would make everyone stop and question everything they thought they knew. At the corner table, Granny May finished the last bite of her meal. Best steak I've had in my life, she said with a smile. Marcus laughed. Good. I didn't buy all this for nothing. Sarah walked up shyly again. Would you like some dessert? Granny May looked at her menu. You choose something for me, sweetheart? Surprise me. Sarah smiled. Yes, ma'am. As she walked away, a man in a gray hoodie entered the restaurant. Nobody noticed him at first. He kept his head down and walked slowly toward the back. But when he reached the middle of the room, he stopped. Then he looked up straight at Marcus. Marcus froze. His eyes narrowed. The man in the hoodie smiled slowly. Well, Marcus Harris. Granny May looked confused. You know him? Marcus stood up slowly. Yeah, I know him. The man pulled off his hood. His hair was long, and a scar ran down the side of his face. My name's Daryl, he said loudly, and I'm Marcus's older brother. Gasps spread through the restaurant. Granny May went pale. No, it can't be. Daryl nodded. Oh, it's me, Ma. Marcus looked stunned. Where have you been all these years? Daryl took a step forward. Prison. You left me there. I didn't leave you, Marcus snapped. You were arrested for robbery. You broke the law. I was a kid, Daryl shouted. I made one mistake. You got out. You got rich. You forgot about me. Granny May stood up now, too. Her hands were shaking. Daryl, I tried to visit you, she whispered. You stopped after 1 year, he said coldly. After that, I was alone. The whole restaurant watched in silence. The room was still. Even the kitchen went quiet. Sarah stood in the doorway, holding a plate of dessert, unsure whether to move. Marcus walked toward Daryl. What do you want? I want what's mine, Daryl said. You're sitting here in fancy clothes, buying restaurants, making speeches, and I've got nothing. You think you're some hero? Marcus looked him in the eyes. You didn't want help, Daryl. You wanted shortcuts, and you hurt people. Daryl's voice dropped lower. I never wanted your fame. I just wanted a chance. Granny May stepped forward slowly. You're still my son. You're still my child. Daryl's hard face softened for a second. His eyes almost welled up, but then he pulled out a crumpled envelope from his jacket. This is from the lawyer, he said, placing it on the table. Dad left something behind. Something you never told me about. Marcus picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was an old letter, written in their father's handwriting. To both my sons, if anything happens to me, the land I own in Georgia is yours equally. Marcus and Daryl. Split it. Share it. Take care of your mother. Marcus looked up, stunned. I never saw this, he whispered. Daryl nodded. Of course not. You were already out building your empire. I was just the boy behind bars. Granny May took the letter with trembling hands. Your father loved both of you, but we lost everything after he died. I didn't know this land still existed. Daryl stepped closer. Well, it does. And now, I want to talk about what's mine. A storm of emotions. Marcus sat down slowly, his heart heavy. All this time he believed he was alone, that Daryl had given up on them. But now, here he was, angry, hurt, but still here. Granny May whispered, You boys were once best friends. Marcus nodded, until he chose the streets. Daryl's voice broke. I chose survival. The words hung in the air like smoke. No one knew what to say. Then Granny May took both of their hands. Her voice was weak but firm. Listen to me, she said. We have two paths here. One ends with more hate, and one starts with healing. Daryl looked at Marcus. You ready to heal, rich man? Marcus didn't blink. Only if you stop blaming everyone. There was a long pause. Daryl slowly sat down. The warm apple pie sat between the two brothers. One bite. Then silence. It wasn't just dessert. It was the first peaceful moment they had shared in over 10 years. Granny May watched them closely. Her heart was beating fast, but her face remained calm. For a mother, nothing hurts more than seeing her children drift apart. And nothing feels better than seeing them come back together, or so she hoped. But as the quiet moment passed, Marcus noticed something in Daryl's eyes. There was still something hidden there, not just pain. Guilt. You didn't just come here for land, did you? Daryl froze. The fork in his hand shook slightly. Granny May looked at both of them. What are you talking about? Marcus leaned in. His voice was low and serious. You came here for something else? What is it? Daryl looked down at the table, his jaw clenched. Then, he slowly reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small black notebook. Granny May gasped. That looks like Marcus interrupted. Dad's journal. Daryl nodded. I took it from the old house before I was arrested, he said. I hid it for years. Marcus grabbed the notebook and flipped through the pages quickly. He stopped when he saw a line that made his heart skip. The restaurant deal in New York. It's not clean. Someone's watching me. If anything happens, Marcus must never trust Harold D. He's not who he says he is. Marcus's hands went cold. Harold D., his late father's business partner, the man Marcus had trusted to help him grow his company, the man who told him Daryl was trouble, the man who helped Marcus buy this very restaurant chain. Granny May put her hand on her chest. Oh Lord. Marcus stared at Daryl. Why didn't you tell me this before? Daryl's eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't know if I could trust you, Granny May whispered. Boys, this is bigger than us. A storm in the past? Marcus stood up and walked to the window. His mind was racing. Everything he had built. Was it based on lies? Was his father murdered? Daryl spoke again, voice shaky. Harold visited me in prison once, told me to stay away from you, offered me money to keep quiet. Granny May gasped. You never told us that. I didn't take the money, Daryl said, but I stayed away, because I thought, maybe he was right. Maybe I really was the problem. Marcus turned around slowly. You weren't the problem, you were the witness. A heavy silence filled the room. Sarah peeked in, saw their faces, and stepped back out quietly. Flashback. The night before their father died, younger Marcus. is arguing with his dad in the kitchen. I want to go to college, Dad? We can't afford it. Marcus, not now. Daryl walks in. Overhearing them, I'll get the money, he says. His father glares at him. You stay out of this. Later that night, Daryl sneaks out of the house. Marcus follows him quietly. He sees Daryl meeting a strange man in a dark car. That man is Harold D. Back to the present. Marcus closed the journal and looked at Daryl. You met Harold before Dad died. Daryl looked down in shame. I didn't know who he was. He promised fast money. I thought I was helping. You didn't help, Marcus said, voice tight. You led him to dead. Granny May gasped again, her hand over her mouth. Oh no. Daryl looked like a child again, broken, confused, lost. I didn't mean to, he whispered. Marcus's eyes softened slightly. You made a mistake, but now we need to fix it. A new enemy outside the restaurant. The man in the black SUV watched closely. He picked up the phone again. They found the journal, he said. The voice on the other side replied. Then, we move tonight. Harold can't let that get out. The man nodded. Understood. The SUV drove off quietly. Inside, Marcus took a deep breath. We need to find out the truth. All of it. Granny May nodded. But be careful. If Harold really hurt your father, he won't let you dig too deep. Daryl looked up. I'll help you. Marcus hesitated. Why now? He asked. Daryl wiped his eyes. Because I'm tired of running. I want to be more than my mistakes. I want to be your brother again. Marcus slowly nodded. Then let's finish what Dad started. The plan begins. They sat back down. The journal in front of them. Every word now mattered. Every page was a clue. Sarah brought them coffee, unsure of what was happening, but feeling the tension. Everything okay? She asked softly. Marcus looked up at her. Not yet, but it will be. Granny May smiled gently at her. You're kind, dear. Stay kind. The world needs it. Sarah smiled back, though confused. As she walked away, Daryl leaned in. We start with the land in Georgia. That's where Dad's old files were. If they're still there, Marcus nodded. Then we'll find out why Harold lied, and what he's hiding. But just as they began writing down the plan, Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging, or you'll lose more than just your business. Granny May's face went pale. What is it? Marcus showed them the message. Daryl whispered. He knows. Marcus looked out the window into the night. The lights of the city flickered. But somewhere in the shadows, danger was watching. This wasn't just about family anymore. It was about truth, power, justice, and they had just declared war. The restaurant was nearly empty now. The lights were dim, the staff had started cleaning up, but Marcus, Daryl, and Granny May stayed at their corner table. The air felt different, heavy. The message on Marcus's phone glowed on the screen. Stop digging, or you'll lose more than just your business. A simple sentence, but filled with danger. Granny May clutched her purse tightly. Marcus, what does it mean? Marcus looked around carefully, his voice low. It means Harold knows we're getting close to the truth. Daryl's jaw tightened. Then we can't stop now. We need to move fast. But just as he said that, boom. The lights in the restaurant flickered and went out for 3 seconds. When they came back on, the front window had a large crack in it. Sarah screamed from the kitchen. Granny May stood up in fear. What was that? Marcus rushed to the window. A brick lay on the floor, wrapped in paper. He picked it up, unfolded the paper slowly. Written in big black letters. Next time, it won't be a brick. The fear sinks in. Police arrived 10 minutes later. They checked the cameras, the streets, the nearby buildings. Nothing. The brick thrower had vanished into the night. Sarah stood with her arms crossed, still shaking. I think I should go home. Marcus nodded. Get some rest. Sarah, thank you for staying. Granny May sat down again, her hand on her chest. This is too much. First, the message. Now this. Daryl looked around the room. They're trying to scare us, and it's working. Marcus stayed quiet. His mind was racing, but deep down, he knew one thing. They were being watched. Back at the apartment that night, Marcus brought Granny May and Daryl to his apartment. He didn't want them staying anywhere alone. He lived on the 12th floor of a tall building, with cameras and a security guard at the gate. Granny May looked around. You live all the way up here. Marcus smiled. Best view in the city. But tonight, even the city lights outside felt distant, like they couldn't protect him from what was coming. They sat together on the couch. Daryl opened the journal again. We need to focus on the Georgia land. It's the only clue left. Marcus nodded. Tomorrow, we fly out. Granny May's voice was tired. I'll stay here. I don't want to slow you boys down. Marcus kissed her forehead. You'll never slow me down. Just then, Daryl's phone buzzed. A private number. One word on the screen. Run. The elevator trapped suddenly. The apartment lights flickered. Marcus rushed to check the hallway. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. He looked at the security screen near the door. It showed someone riding up in the elevator. No name, no floor pressed. Just slowly rising, heading to the 12th. Marcus's heart raced. They're coming. He turned to Daryl. Take Mom into the bedroom. Lock the door. What about you? Daryl asked. I'll stall them. Granny May shook her head. No, Marcus, don't open that door. But he already had a plan. A shadow at the door as the elevator dinged. Marcus stood quietly by the entrance. He grabbed a small metal rod he kept for safety. A slow knock, then silence. Then a voice cold, soft and terrifying. You should have stopped, Marcus. He didn't respond. We gave you a warning. We don't give second chances. Marcus spoke clearly. Tell Harold we're not afraid. The man outside laughed. This isn't about fear. It's about survival. If you step on rich men's shoes, they crush you. Marcus shouted. If you hurt my family, I'll destroy everything you built. Silence again. Then the sound of footsteps walking away, but not fast. Slow, confident, like someone who would be back. Moments after, opened the door carefully. The hallway was empty, but on the floor lay a burned photo, a picture of Marcus's father, torn and half-burned. Granny May saw it and broke down crying. They're playing with us, Marcus whispered. No, they're scared of us. Daryl stood tall. Then we hit back. Marcus turned to him. Tomorrow, we go to Georgia. No more hiding. Daryl nodded. Let's finish what Dad started. Early morning flight the next morning. They packed quietly. Marcus arranged a private flight to Georgia. Only he and Daryl went. Granny May stayed back with a bodyguard Marcus hired. Before leaving, she hugged both of them tight. Be safe. And remember, the truth is the strongest weapon you have. Arriving in Georgia, the land was quiet. Wide fields, a small broken shed. In an old farmhouse with boarded-up windows. Marcus and Daryl stepped out of the car. This is where Dad used to come every summer, Daryl said softly. They entered the farmhouse. Dust everywhere, spiderwebs, silence. But then, behind an old shelf, Marcus noticed a floorboard that looked loose. He pulled it up. Inside was a metal box. They opened it slowly. Inside were documents, bank papers, letters, photos, and at the bottom, a USB drive. The air inside the old farmhouse was thick with dust, but Marcus and Daryl didn't care. They stood over the small metal box like it was a treasure chest, and in many ways it was. Inside it, answers. They had just found a USB drive hidden under the floorboard, the last thing their father had possibly left behind before his death. Daryl held it tightly. This drive. This could prove everything. Marcus nodded. If we can unlock it, we might finally expose Harold. But before they could leave, they both heard it. A sound, a click, like metal scraping against wood. Marcus's eyes darted to the front door. It was slightly open now. I locked that, Daryl whispered. Marcus pulled him back. They weren't alone. A silent visitor. Marcus motioned for Daryl to stay quiet. He took out his phone and slowly turned on the flashlight. A shadow moved past the window, then another. They were surrounded. Go out the back, Marcus whispered. I'll distract them. No, Daryl whispered back. We do this together. They crept toward the back of the house. Floorboards creaked under their feet. Suddenly crash, the front door flew open. Two masked men rushed in. Marcus and Daryl sprinted through the back door into the tall grass. The sun was low now, painting the sky orange. But it didn't feel beautiful, it felt dangerous. They ran toward the car, parked by the fence. One of the men chased them, but Marcus jumped behind the wheel and started the engine just in time. Drove off fast, the tires kicking up dirt behind them. The farmhouse grew smaller, but the danger? Still close. Safe for now. Back in a motel room hours later, Marcus connected the USB to his laptop. His hands were shaking. Daryl stood behind him, silent. The screen loaded. A folder appeared. Confidential for my sons. Both of them stared. Marcus clicked it open. There were 3 things inside. A video, a document, a voice recording. The video, a father's message. Marcus pressed play. His father appeared on screen, tired, older but strong. If you're watching this, something went wrong. I knew it would. Harold and I started this business together, but when the money came, so did the lies. He made deals with men I couldn't trust, and when I said no, he made sure I'd disappear. I kept all the proof. I knew one day my sons would need it. Daryl, Marcus, I know I failed you both in different ways, but please, work together. Finish what I couldn't. The world thinks Harold is a hero, but he's a thief, and maybe worse. Expose him, not just for me, but for yourselves. The video ended. Neither brother spoke. Tears welled up in Daryl's eyes. He believed in us. Even when we stopped believing in each other. Marcus wiped his face. We're not stopping now. The document. The deals. The next file was a scanned PDF. Old contracts. Signed bank papers. Secret payments to fake companies. All signed by Harold. Some showed money being moved to offshore accounts. Some mentioned a name. Councilman J. A powerful man in the city. Harold wasn't working alone. Marcus said quietly. Daryl nodded. This is corruption at the highest level. The voice recording, the final blow. They played the last file. It was their dad's voice, shaky, scared. He told me if I ever spoke out, my boys would pay the price. I recorded this in case I don't make it. Harold planned to change ownership of the company right after I died. He made a fake will. Everything would go to him, but my real will is in the safe at the Georgia bank. Locker number 14. Password is Daryl's birthday. The recording cut off. They both looked at each other. That's where we go next, Marcus said, back in the city. Meanwhile, in Marcus's apartment, Granny May was watching the clock. It was past midnight. She walked to the window and froze. A black SUV was parked across the street. Again, she called Marcus, but it went straight to voicemail. Something was wrong. The bank the next morning? Marcus and Daryl stood in front of the small bank in Georgia. It was old, quiet, the kind of place where people didn't ask questions. Inside, they showed ID and asked for locker #14. The manager raised an eyebrow. That's been closed for over a decade, Marcus insisted. We have the password, please. After a long pause, the man led them down to the lockers. Darrell typed in the code, 0719, his birthday. Click. The locker opened. Inside a small leather file, Marcus opened it. At the top, last will and testament of Michael Bennett, their real father's will, and it was clear. Everything, the restaurants, the land, the company shares, was meant for his sons, not Harold. Harold stood at the door like a shadow from the past. Behind him were two men in suits, tall, quiet, and dangerous. He looked at Marcus and Daryl with a calm smile, but his eyes were sharp, cold. Well, Harold said slowly, you two have been very busy. Granny May stepped behind Marcus. You're not welcome here. Harold ignored her. Let's not play games, he continued. You found the drive. You think that gives you power? He stepped closer to Marcus. It doesn't. It just paints a target on your back. Marcus stood tall. You already tried fear. Didn't work. Harold's smile faded. Then maybe you'll understand this. He motioned to one of the suited men. The man reached into his coat. Granny gasped. But before anything happened, police sirens wailed outside. And then came the shouting. Police. Hands where we can see them. The trap. Harold froze. His face twisted in confusion. Daryl stepped forward. You're not the only one who records things. Marcus pulled out his phone. Still recording audio. Every word you just said is saved and streamed to a cloud. The front door flew open. Officers poured in. Guns raised. Harold's guards dropped their weapons. Granny May's eyes filled with tears. The officer in charge spoke firmly. Harold Donovan, you're under arrest for fraud, blackmail, and conspiracy to murder. The two suited men were cuffed. Harold looked at Marcus, breathing hard. You think this is the end? Marcus stepped closer. No, this is the beginning. Going public the next morning, news broke everywhere. Billionaire restaurator Harold Donovan arrested in corruption scandal. The video of Marcus and Daryl's father, the documents, and the voice recording were aired on all channels. Pictures of the real will, showing Marcus and Daryl as rightful owners, flooded social media. People were shocked. The story went viral. A once powerful man, now exposed. Public reaction. Customers outside the original restaurant stood with signs. Justice for Michael Bennett. Truth always wins. We stand with Granny May. News reporters waited for statements. Marcus stood before the cameras with Granny May on one side and Daryl on the other. My father built something honest, Marcus said. Harold tried to take it with lies and threats, but he forgot one thing. Family doesn't break. Tears rolled down Granny May's cheeks. We never wanted power, Daryl added. We just wanted truth. Healing old wounds. Later that evening, the three of them sat at the restaurant again, the same table where it all began, the same quiet corner, but this time, it felt full of light. Sarah served them with a smile. Feels good to have you all back. Granny May looked around. I never thought I'd see this day. Daryl raised his glass. To Dad, Marcus raised his too. To truth, and to second chances. They all clinked glasses, and for the first time in a long time, they smiled without fear. A new beginning. 2 weeks later, Marcus and Daryl reopened the restaurant under a new name, Bennett's Table. The opening night was packed. People of all colors, all backgrounds, all ages came together. No hate, no division, just unity. Granny May greeted everyone at the door like a queen. Children hugged her. Old customers cried when they saw her. The once racist waiter, Carl, had been fired long ago, but now, new staff stood proud, respectful, kind, and trained to treat every soul with dignity. Final scene. A letter from the past. After closing, Marcus found something left in his locker at the restaurant. A sealed envelope. No name on the front, just my sons. He opened it slowly. It was a final letter from their father. If this letter finds you, I hope it means you found the truth. I hope you stood for what's right, even when it was hard. The world will always try to divide people by race, class, or greed. But remember this: love, respect, and truth. These are the only things that truly matter. Marcus, Daryl, I'm proud of the men you've become. Keep the fire burning, and never forget your roots. Marcus folded the letter carefully, tears in his eyes. He looked out the restaurant window. The city was quiet, the stars were out, and for the first time in years, everything felt right.